Teddi Emerald. Welcome to the Hey Sunshine podcast.
Thank you so much. Hello.
It is so good to have you here, and you are literally shining, and I'm seeing the little diamantes glistening in your teeth. It's so you. I love it.
Thank you.
So, Teddi, you sparked my interest. It would have been about a year ago when I think I met you at a party up in Byron, and I was just like, holy shit, this girl like oozes authenticity. Like, ain't no one gonna break your stride. Like, you are just so magnetic in your energy. And I literally at that point I was like, okay, when I have a podcast, you were going to come on and you were going to teach us how to be a badass bitch and be authentic.
Yeah.
So
Who's this bad bitch?
who's
That's
this
like
bad bitch?
one of my favorite things at the moment. Like seriously, bad bitch channeling energy. I actually had a healing from a shaman in Greece when I was doing my frequency tour last year after a retreat with Sal. And yeah, he was on the medicine and like was like, okay, like what's your intention? And I really thought about it before I went in, and I was like, because I'm quite colloquial, you know, like I'm very Aussie and like very slang, like super spiritual, but in, you know, those
the
kind
perfect
of
contrast.
Yes, exactly. And I remember being like because I'm so sensitive and like caring and all those kind of things, it was like, okay, like I've been really working on this leadership energy, this sword energy, like for the last 2 years, and that's been amazing. And like working through even more of the people pleaser, all that kind of thing. And I was like, no, I just really want to step in and step up as this bad bitch. Like I'm here to help people get out of the matrix.
Yes.
And it's like I've got to be in there and be able to be in conversation with people. You know, there might be a bit of to and fro. It's not just like hanging out in spiritual circles and whatnot. Like, let me go in and engage with the world. I'm here to work with the creative, alternative, you know, weird, like weird beings. Like, I fucking love them. But it's like, okay, like get in there, be able to be in conversation. And so I went in. And there was a translator, and the guy's like, "What's your intention?" And I was like, "I want to be a bad bitch and get people out of the matrix." And the guy was like,
just like drop the bomb.
"What?" Yeah, I was like, "Yep, queen energy, like in there, having fun, being magnetic." I'm like, "Let's do this." And then the shaman's just laughing at me, just being like, "Oh my God, who is this?" Like everyone's like would have been going in like all like sacred and like more love and just like whatever the things are. Like I've been in that many ceremonies, I know what it's like. I was like, fuck it, like this is how I am. Like I'm a little fairy alien and that's how I feel. I'm like
breaking the mold
and like have fun doing it as well, like not the martyrdom and not the suffering. And like, yeah, I get it, like when you're in this shit and like going through stuff, it's hard, like I get it, but also it's like if we know we're writing the script, we know we're reprogramming our stories in our unconscious mind, and it's like we do get to make it up, and it's like putting the flavor through it that we want to experience life. Like one day I was driving in Fantasy and I was like stressing about trash, like my shop, something shit, like who even knows, that's how inconsequential it is. But I was just noticing, I was like, oh, like look, you're all like hunched over and you're all focused and like you're not even noticing nature. Like when was the last time you messaged your girlfriends? Like when do you go and like go to the beach or do something beautiful? I was like, you live in the best town in Australia. You have the best businesses, you had the best friends. Like just watch yourself, Teddi. Like this is the truth. And
it's a zoom out sort of energy. Like it's like get out of the freaking gutter and just zoom out.
What, like you're gonna look back on this in years to come and be like, why? Because this is like the pattern of like how we do the things. And I was like, just enjoy it. Like, cool, you got a money worry, get over it. Like
well, it's enjoy the duality of life, right? Enjoy the good, enjoy the bad, have a laugh, you know, literally like that's all we can do when shit hits the fan. Have a laugh, learn your lessons and freaking move on. Like that's, I know I'm like watering down it, but
no, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. And I was just like, yeah, just like caught myself and was like, get out of this trance, like get out of the habitual thinking and feeling. And then all of a sudden that's the behavior and the way and the tone of life. It's like,
So good.
Yeah,
Okay, we need you in everyone needs a Teddi in their back pocket, just being like cheerleader over here, like get out of these cycles.
Yeah.
And what I really took from that, Teddi, and your whole life journey really, well, from what I know, is that you can really turn anything around. Like nothing set in concrete, nothing, no program or pattern is enforced upon you that you can't escape from or you can't get out of. So I would love to hear, and I know the listeners will be dying to hear, just about your whole journey, like where it started and how the frick did you get here?
Yeah, totally. So I'll give you like a little nutshell vibe of it. So I grew up with a schizophrenic mum, a single mum, and like life was weird and life was really hard. Like grew up in housing commission, squatting in abandoned houses. I was kicked out from when I was 15, so I've been independent since then. Started working from that age as well in retail, which is fantastic. Yeah, and I would say I've always been very spiritual. Like I was always had a spiritually minded nature and was always pondering those kind of things. And I got super religious for a chapter when I was actually, that reason why I got kicked out of home was because I went super religious. Kind of got into a cult, Jehovah's Witness cult.
There's always a cult story every now and then.
Oh yeah, just a classic.
Yeah.
Which was really good at the time, you know, like I learned how to research like ancient history and cross-reference stuff and and I had a community. It was great. It was awesome. And it worked until it didn't work. So that's cool. And then I would say that I got into my healing stuff pretty early as well, like started studying metaphysical health and iridology and all that kind of stuff when I was 18.
Wow.
Like really getting into it, but knew that I remember being like, I could never do this with someone right now because it's too much. Like I am too overwhelmed and I just didn't feel the resonance for it.
Were you doing it for yourself? Like, were you learning because you're like, I want to learn this to heal myself in a way? Yeah.
Oh, it was more like I'm just fascinated. Like it was never even a career move. It was more like I'm just interested in this, so I'm just going to go study it. And that's kind of just like it kept opening me up to things. And I really rate that as like a beautiful thing to do, because I remember even in my early 20s being like, oh, like I can't just do retail forever, even though I was having the best time. I loved it. Working for Cotton On and then Quicksilver and DC. It was so good.
And now you got the trash vintage retail dream living out now.
Yeah. I tried to do the mature thing when I was 21. I was like, oh, I've got to like get out of retail and do something with my life, and then was like a radiology receptionist and then got fired because I was good at spelling and I was so disorganized. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll go study to be a nursing a nursing care person. Like I just didn't know what to get into, and then I got back into retail and loved it. Like,
this is the vibe.
And then kept doing like short courses in things that I enjoyed, like doing night school and things like that. Like I did like interior design and things like that. And what I see from it is, it doesn't matter if we're actually going to step into being that, but it's all the little breadcrumbs along the way where it's like choosing to follow the vibration that actually lights you up and gives you energy. And when in a higher state of energy, then things start magnetizing towards you and like things start to shift. And it's like that soul purpose starts to like stir the cauldron and be like, it's a conglomerate of all of it. But don't think that just because you study that thing, you're going to be that thing, and all the attachments that get put on it.
Yeah.
Because I made myself so miserable with that, being like, oh, I studied interior design, but I'm so shy and insecure and like I can't, you know. And I was in Melbourne at the time, so super arrogant and too cool. I was like, oh my God, I'm so like nice and lame and like just couldn't get in with anyone.
Yeah. And was each piece of I'm seeing it as like rich tapestry of like everything that's built the Teddi that we see today. But did each part you found a new piece in yourself? That's kind of what I'm hearing. It's like each part you discovered a new skill set or a new talent, and then it's almost like you're building this toolkit that is the Teddi that we see today.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And I would say that the key points is like following what felt good and exciting. Like I really like, yeah, excitement and creativity and happiness. Like I just love those energies. So I noticed that my life got better when I chose things or people or places that were doing that for me and activating that for me. They were the things that got the ball rolling, like long before doing like the actual healing work on myself. And then when I did a EFT, like tapping personal healing program with a practitioner for three months, I reckon, actually maybe even longer. We started off with like a personal program, and then it kept extending and extending because my life just started getting so much more better and better and better the more I did it. So I kept being like,
you got hooked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was the first like activation, I reckon, with my life getting good, was dealing with, I went to him because I was like wanting to do something creative, but I lacked the confidence in myself to do it. And okay, let's work around that, all the confidence things, which I wouldn't have even had the language to say, oh, I'm not confident, because I was a really bubbly, friendly person, but I was so wired to make other people feel really good. So I knew, like I was more like I was very interested in people and very excited by things. My focus was always like on
external.
external.
Yeah.
And when as a practitioner now, I know it's because, well, if I had been thinking about myself, I would have felt really shit and miserable and insecure. So it's easier to make someone else feel good and to light someone else up and to get excited and be in that energy. So
was
that's
that a protective mechanism in a way, like just not wanting to deal with your own stuff? Yeah,
for sure. And it's like, and it's not even a known one. Like I didn't know it back then, and I only know it now because of been doing the work for so many years.
Well, I've got an interesting one on the back of that is, and now I look back, I'm like, I understand why. So I am like 21 questions, as you know, running a podcast, that kind of makes sense. But if I'm meeting someone for the first time, I will ask so many questions, and like, yes, I'm interested in them, but also I'm deflecting away from having the attention and having the light, because that felt scary and it felt like I had to take up space, which I wasn't comfortable with. So a similar sort of vibe.
It's exactly the same vibe. Exactly the same vibe. Like I didn't want anyone asking me questions because I didn't have anything that was of value. I didn't want to air my story out. I did, because the only things that I had to say were depressing. Like not depressing because I was depressed, but it's like there was only sad stories around me. You know what I mean? So I was like, I don't want to talk about that. Yeah, I just want to block it out and focus on something else, you know?
You referred to it one time as being a chameleon, and I just resonated with that so much. Like whatever situation you would throw me in, and I'm sure the same for you, it's like we can mold and change ourselves to fit, which kind of ties into like people pleaser energy as well. Is that something that you really struggled with growing up?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I wouldn't even say struggled with it. I would say I was blessed with it.
I love that. Talk me through why you, that reframe.
Because I think I went to like 13 different schools, and I didn't even go through 12. I only went to year 11, and I got really good at becoming likable, you know, which is people pleasing. And yeah, it's like a safety thing. And I think that it's a really beautiful skill to have, to be moldable and to be able to connect with anyone. They don't have to be a certain kind of person or a class of person or even into the same shit as you know? Whereas like, there's perks to everything, you know? If someone's growing up in the same school and the same families and the same people, it's like those groups and cliques can form, and then it's like the identity, who I am. I'm part of this clique, I'm part of this group, and this is what we wear, and this is what we're into, and this is who we're friends with, and we're not friends with, like that. And it's like
it's so rigid.
It's so rigid, and it doesn't work, and the universe is going to come in and crack that identity apart at some point, because we're not who the program and who we think we are. And like a breakup, it's not something happens in family, a disease, like it's all life trying to come in and crack you open to be more than what you think. So it's like I got that fluidity and that training right at the start, which is super beautiful. And like a world of polarity, it's like, yeah, that was beautiful and it's great and it's helped me so much.
Yeah.
And it works up until it doesn't, until it's like, fuck, well, this is, you know, why I work so much on like, can I be the sword? Can I take up my own space, as you said, and bring my essence through and be okay with the polarization that I am. I am weird. I am different. I have very different thoughts, and this is why it's so important to take up that space and, you know, be okay with people not comprehending it or not liking it, and just be like the weird kind of creature that I am, so that it's, you know, recognizable for the people that I'm here to work with, the people that I'm here to be friends with, like lovers, like business collaborators, like whatever it is, you know what I mean? So it's like, it works up until it's like, okay, babes, like now
let's try something else.
Try
it. When you said I'm weird, you literally did like dragon arms like this. But so question for you, Teddi, do you feel like we are all innately weird and wacky and unique individuals, but it's like societal programming, conditioning, patterning has put us in a box and told us to be that way?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Yep. I totally do.
And so how can we break free?
I want to
break free.
So many things.
I know. Let's do your top 3 tips for breaking free from the matrix.
First of all, watch the Matrix.
Yeah. Oh my God. So good.
Yes. There's so many things, isn't there? Because it's like, first of all, knowing yourself, to become yourself. So I would also even recommend looking at like what triggers you, because sometimes people are like, well, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I like. It's like, well, look at what triggers you and what you don't like. That'd be some information. Because what I've seen, what I've noticed with humans are, when we get frustrated and over something, that's when we change, you know, when the pressure is so much, that's when it changes. Like when someone like, almost like, I guess because I work so much with health, I have so much health stuff running through me. It's like when health's really bad, that's when the lifestyle change fully comes in. It's like people kind of suffer for so long, like in that mediocrity, that lukewarm, and become acclimatized to it. It's almost like that boiling the live frog
analogy. I literally was thinking that. Yeah.
It's like not noticing that it's actually shit. It's not good enough. But because of perhaps where the standards are, or the identity of like, no, this is fine. Like I'm used to putting up with a bit. Like this is fine. I don't deserve more. Or like good things don't happen like this for me, or whatever. Until it's like really bad, and it's like, actually, now I'm going to take action and move with it. So I find like triggers are a good thing. What's some great tips? Psychedelics. Like big advocate for the medicines. Are
there any in particular that you not recommend, but that you have really enjoyed yourself or have been really beneficial for you?
For sure. Like for me, I have a real respect for the plants, like the natural medicines from the earth, because they have their own consciousness. Like the mushrooms, ayahuasca, the cactuses, like San Pedro, they have their own consciousness, their own beings. So I really love working with them, because it's like I can connect with the plant if I'm a bit overwhelmed, or if I want some guidance or whatever, and be like, like help me out here, or like, hey, like I know, you know, like this is all about the shadow work and expanding consciousness, but this is a bit too much for me right now. Can you be
let's put on the brakes a bit.
And that might sound really weird, but when you're in that space, it can be really helpful to remember that. But I still have a respect for, you know, like the other synthetics. However, I haven't felt that spirit connection with them. Had very spiritual experiences, but it's almost like just like a different level, or that depth isn't there, or like, So yeah, and then what else? What was the question again?
How can we break free from the matrix? Because I love that it's about like looking at our triggers. It's about like maybe experimenting with plant medicine.
Yeah, I think the thing is altered states. One of my favorite books, what is it, Spirit Fire or something like that? They talk about how there's humans always will have something that they can alter their state of consciousness in, and have an expanded view of themselves and life. So yes, plant medicines are amazing, but also breath work or Sufism, dancing, you know, dancing itself gets you into trance. So I was just like, yeah, go have medicine. Because I remember when I was first getting into it, I spoke to a shaman and I was like, oh my gosh, this would be so amazing for everyone. And he was like, actually, no, Teddy, like, this is, it's like the university degree of healing. And some people aren't ready to take responsibility for the things that come up in that. So it's not everyone should do this at all. This is if their soul's ready for that. And that really kept me in check. It's like, yes, okay, beautiful. I can respect that. Like,
have you had like a connect? So say like, because you would have sat with, you know, ayahuasca, and do you have a time where afterwards you'll get the calling again, or you'll feel her calling you second round, third round?
All the time.
Yeah. And does that happen with different plant medicines as well? Like you'll just get the inkling or the intuitive nudge on what one's the best.
Totally. Yeah. Like I find that it's almost like it starts coming into your field. Like you're hearing people talking about it, or like you're starting to think about it, or you saw a movie, or like someone brought it up in conversation, or, you know, it starts coming into your field of awareness and vibrates in. And that's when it's like, oh, okay, this is, like, pay attention to these signs. And the thing is, like, pay attention to that. And also, you're never ready. Like sometimes when I'm driving, man, I've like sat so many times, like I've lost out. I'll be like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I'm like, just go, you know, like, just like, it's coming to your field. You know that it comes into your field when you're ready. Like,
just surrender, really.
Surrender and go. Yeah.
Man. Yeah, that's I would imagine there's a lot of people who go into this and not knowing the extent of it and thinking like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna, you know, sit with the mother or the grandmother and just be their lives are completely shifted. So what have been some, if you're open to sharing, what have been some like really life-changing moments that have come from using plant medicine?
I think for me it felt like a coming home, actually. And you know, being someone that's felt like an outsider their whole life, to come home to the self on such a expansive, beautiful, fun, imaginative, creative level. I was just like, the first thing I said, I remember like looking at one of my friends and being like, oh, I didn't know it was going to be like this. Like, this is awesome. Like, this is so good. This is like the best party like in the galaxy. Like, what the fuck? Like, why are people talking about it as if like it's, oh my god, it's not serious. It's like, it's actually the best. And like, that's how a lot of my ceremonies are. I'm just like music and candles and bells and singing and dancing, and it's just divine.
So good. Like, do you think the lens which we see it affects the way that it plays out? Like if someone's going in with this, like, it's got to be really serious and I know this is going to be dark and heavy. Or is it kind of just like, it's completely like, we're going to get what we need?
I reckon we get what we need with it, for sure. And like, that could be a lesson for someone as well. Like, it could be like, oh, like kind of like how I was saying, like, you flavor your story, you flavor how you live your life and learn your lessons. And perhaps that's why I have that view now of being like, like, I always come in with respect because I never know what I'm getting. It's like the great mystery. But that, I remember that being one of the teachings with Wachuma, the cactus medicine. It was like, it can be like, you know, it was a daytime ceremony, walking around in nature. And I was like, we don't have to suffer. It's like a choice, you know, and we can be like, how, like, and even one Aya ceremony, I was like moving through some really like icky, yucky stuff, not mine, but like more tuning into collective consciousness, like, no, like to like all the satanic pedo kind of
big dark shit.
And like, I was just like, oh, okay, cool, like this is what's moving through. And that could be something like that's like, oh, this is so horrific and scary and traumatizing. And Aya actually created this like thing that looked like a Maori kind of thing that's hung out, and it's like that, and it was like all rainbow, and it was like moving, and it was having my point of attention on it and focus on it whilst all this other stuff was getting moved through my system. And it was like, don't attach and put your mind's focus onto that stuff, because you're going to blow it up and you're going to get entangled in that and scare yourself silly. It's like, it was almost like entertaining like a child and being like, here's the toy, like look at this rainbow cute thing, like and I feel like that's like a really good lesson on how to navigate the mind. It's like, yeah, we can be moving really big things, but where do we point our attention? Where do we put our energy? You know, mind focusing on something is going to expand it.
Yeah. And it's also paired with like not wanting to bypass the reality of the shit as well. So it's like, how can we sit in the polarity of both the good and the bad?
Exactly right. Yeah. And just allowing, and I say that a lot, like, because I'm so down the conspiracy rabbit hole.
Me too.
Yeah.
Much to our detriment sometimes as well.
Yeah, yes and no. I actually am like, no, I will move it all through my system, because why would I resist something and be like, no, that's too dark, I don't want to look at that? Because whatever that I hold resistance about, the universe is going to knock it over my head anyway. It's like, and it's having control over me. Like, what resist is persisting. So it's like, okay, cool, I'll look at it and move it through my system, like whatever the shock, appalled, horror, rage, whatever, like move it through. And that's why having techniques and tools, you know, whether it's meditation or something like tapping is phenomenal for this kind of thing, because even like moving the emotion through will help the perspective change. So I find like somatic work, like body stuff and using the meridians and breath and sound, but for me, I always go back to tapping, because it can, like, otherwise the mind just keeps things looping.
Definitely. Yeah. Or you'll ignore it and push it down, and then it's going to come out in a more unhealthy way later. Exactly. And that's, I love tapping. I love kinesiology, which you're both well versed in. So but the most beautiful thing is that we're actually sitting with the feeling, and we're sitting with the emotion and where it is in the body. We're not just like, okay, like let's just push that aside and never think about that again.
Yeah. And why I think that's really important is because we're all leaders in our life, right? So it's like anchoring in a more holistic leadership as not being afraid to look at things that are painful or like or grotesque or whatever, and moving it through so that we can be more expansive and hold those polarities and actually be in our boundaries and our standards, like our yes and our no, from a place that's not like triggered or trauma. You know, boundaries are really great and empowering, but sometimes they can come from like,
a wounded place. It's like, because I was, you know, I think I'm a recovering people pleaser. I think it's always in our body innately, but it's like when I first started with boundaries, it was like so hard and fast, and it's like, you know, it was coming from a very wounded place, whereas now it's like the emotional charge is diffused, and it's like, here it is, like it feels less intense when I state a boundary now. Which is so much better. Yeah.
More of that.
God. I know. I love, like, it's so funny, like when you just like find fellow reforming people pleasers, you're like, I see you.
Yeah, I see.
I know what you've been through.
You get it. Keep going.
Yeah, 100%.
So good.
So as the confidence queen, do you find like you've built an identity around being bold, being brilliant, being fabulous? What about on the days where you're like, I don't want to fucking be bold. I don't want to be fabulous. I want to be a piece of shit on the couch, and I have to go down to the supermarket and people see you not being fabulous.
Yeah.
How do you go having such a strong identity and then sometimes like having to break that and just be authentic?
Oh, I love that. It's like that's where it matters the most, and that's where it counts the most. Like feeling sensitive or lower vibrational, lower energy, or vulnerable, like feeling like that's where the real magic happens. Like even when, and I think where our emotions are will influence the caliber of thoughts, you know. So that's why I say frequency and emotions. Like if there's feeling of shame or embarrassment or then those kind of thoughts are going to be the things that come up, and they're going to get really loud and find everything that's not good enough, pretty much. And it's in that space that there can be like great feedback about like, okay, well, you know, what do you want to change if there is anything here? And then also like this, for me, I find that this is a space for the most kindness and the most care, and the most giving permission that it's okay, like to blob around, you know. And I actually like will do that and put it out, like if I in certain ways, like if I'm getting self-conscious about my body, instead of doing what the natural thing is to hide, I'll be like, no, we are not like going to make that okay, that shame thought that you need to be a certain way in order to show whatever part of your body off, because okay, so what I mean by this is like, you know, when you're feeling good, like, and it doesn't even matter about what you actually look like, it's just you
the
think
feeling
at the time, and you're like, oh, like, yeah, my tummy or my bum or like whatever, my face, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna really flaunt it. And it's like, that's fucking great, like, yes, get it out there and show it off, yes, yes, yes. But if you think it's only worthy when you're like a certain tightness or skinniness or color, like whatever the shade that you are, then it's like making it only okay in your spring or your summer or your youth or your maiden. And then what happens when you're like, your body's like shifting, you know, whether like you're menstruating or you're a mother, or like you've gone through something really big and your body's shifted, you know, and so now you hide, now it's not okay. And so I really watch that. I always am looking at polarities, and I'm like, no, bitch, like, you're okay when you're feeling like shit, and when your body isn't what it used to be or you thought was good, it's like still beautiful. Now this is where it counts more than ever. I'll be like, wear the midriff thing, or like, you know what I mean, or like like
are there the action steps that are being like, I'm not playing into this game in my mind, like, you know, I'm gonna post the photo when I've got a pimple, I'm gonna you know, show up in my mini dress when I'm feeling bloated. That's
exactly it. It's like, because it's not about, because I almost can feel people being like, oh, like, it's easy for you to talk, and it's like, no, like, no for me, and no for all the women that I work with, because we all have our own story and our
100%.
own like vision of like ourself and the world and blah blah blah. And it's like, or for me, I call it like just doing the opposite. When I'm feeling poor, when I'm feeling poor, it's not even feeling, when I am, you know, when I
am poor, $2 in the bank account,
no money. And then it's like this is what happened to me with my frequency tour, actually, just before I went to Europe, was didn't have much money, neither of my businesses did, which I was like, ooh, it's not failure, it's feedback. How did I create this? Like, what's my belief systems, what's my stories that have created my action or lack of action that did this? And I was like, this is great, like, breakdown to breakthrough, like, this is really cool. I must be ready for a new level of leadership in some way, because it's very uncomfortable. And then had the opportunity to go to Europe, and I was like, oh, I could say right now, like, no, I should be working on my business, I need to be here, I need to be doing this, I should do this, I should do that. And I was like, no, actually, that's not the kind of leadership that I want to be a stand for, of like boring, sensible, normal, no energy, slave driver, like, fuck that shit, like, no. And I was like, full new paradigm leadership. Like, okay, if I really, really believe that it's like thoughts and intentions and energy and feeling that create the results in life, this is the time to go. When I have good,
putting into practice.
Yeah, reality reflecting back to me like, no. Like, I could buy into that reality and believe it, yet I fucking created it. So I was like, no, I'm going to recreate this, and and so I set my intention like really strong, like, this is what I want, this is what I'm calling in, this is how I'm going to do it. Let this be a vibrational upgrade. And like so like had a little bit of money to obviously like get the ticket. Then like was like, fuck, it's never a lack of money, it's a lack of creativity. So how do I generate, you know, monies? And started doing that. And then I noticed when I was like overseas, I noticed that I would stay in like backpacker places. Like, I just feel in this thing of like, oh, I really like staying in backpackers and just doing it really cheap. And I was like, oh yeah, that's fine. And then just before the retreat, that I was like co-facilitating on, I was like really met up against my thing where I was like, okay, do I go stay somewhere nice or do I go and stay somewhere cheap? And I was like, no, I want to go stay somewhere nice because I think this is going to get me off in a good vibe. Like I'm going to have more creative ideas, blah, blah, blah. But I chose the cheap place and it just ended up being such a run around. Like it ended up costing me more, like wasn't good. And I was like, oh, thank you, universe, for this lesson, because this is the whole point. It's like, where am I not saying yes to what I truly want because of the story? And I feel like this gets really edgy because people can get really activated with this kind of stuff, you know, finances or like body or just anything. It's like, and notice when there's an activation and a defensiveness, it's like, well, what's the trigger here? What are you,
what is that?
it's an identity. Oh, it's easy for you to say. And it's like, how about like, let's just drop the guards and like, you know, kind of like look at what's going on underneath this and how could I be actually evolving and expanding, and maybe there'd be a part of me that I'm letting go of and that part doesn't want to die, and that's why it's getting angry and throwing spears at someone else, you know. So I just want to kind of bring that in there.
I think that's point number 3 on our how to break the matrix, is like do the uncomfortable thing, put trust in like what you actually want, and break away from the shoulds. You nailed it.
And I think it's like, it's choosing to believe in a reality that isn't there and like show up as that, and it's like a deep level of trust, you know? But also choosing, like it's 100% choosing, because it's like, well, there could be every reason not to, and I'm going for it. And this is what I think is so pivotal with our health and with our wealth and with creating love. It's like a lot of us are coming from family programs and society programs where it hasn't been great. You know, even if you grew up in a family that's still together, it still might not be great for you as a person. Like maybe you didn't feel that you could express yourself, or there was a pressure to be someone. So everyone has their own bag of shit that they're dealing with, and there's no greater or worse in that regard.
It's all relative.
It's all relative. But if we want, like, I think the beautiful thing with social media and like seeing so much diversity of how to live and how success can be created and so easy, it's like we're all going to be met with things where it's like, this challenges my perception of who I think I am in reality and what's possible. And that's where it's like, okay, do I want to lean into this? Do I want to have the opportunity of creating something different for myself? Well, then now I'm going to need to start to look at all the subconscious programming around who I thought I was and who I think the world is. And that's when it, you know, getting into alignment to create that starts to happen.
I'm picturing you in a backpackers, like traveling, and like you're showing up in the backpacker, but in your mind, in your mental headspace, you're like, I'm a badass bitch, I'm a fucking leader, like I'm a CEO. And then it's like those two, like it was like the decisions you were making weren't in alignment with who you were choosing to be.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So good. I remember hearing that story and I was like, oh my God, that's like so pivotal, because we were booking a trip at the same time, and it's like, how do we actually want to be staying, and like what places do we want to pay the extra little bit of money and stay somewhere a bit nicer? And like I'm very much, you know, it sounds like you are too, influenced by surrounding and like environment and beautiful, you know, a nice home. We want to live nicely. But it's like where are we choosing to show up as that, and where are we not choosing to show up as that?
And what I find interesting, I love that so much, because one, environment has such a big impact on us, on our health, on the way that we think, on our relationships, like so much. Like, and if you want to get woo-woo, it's like even like the consciousness of the area, like what are people thinking about life in that area? Like I grew up in shitty towns, like shitty small towns. Do you think there's like an expansive, like healthy mentality? No, it's like crime and like
doom and gloom vibes.
What you can, and everyone's against me, and like ugh. So it's like, if I had stayed living in that area, would I have grown? No. It's like moving to different areas and being around different communities changes like the flavor of like what's possible and what's like potential. And what I just like thought of when you were saying that, it's almost not it's like, yes, choose the environment. Great. What does it give you? You wake up, you're beautiful, you're energized, you're inspired. Who knows what you want to create from that? Or because you're feeling so good, then you go out in the world and then you have a great experience and or meet someone and that's a new, you know, like something that brings joy in your life. Like we don't know how it ripples. But what I was also thinking was, what I get excited about is, what is this a reflection of? Like I love the unconscious things. It's like, oh, when I chose that thing that's like a little bit cheaper, then I didn't need to. Why? Like what's the thought patterns that are going on with that? Like, yeah, there's so much gold in it. You know what I mean?
Was it a self-worth piece for you when it came back to booking the cheaper thing? Or what was the belief that it came down to?
Yeah, totally. Because if I was with a lover, I would have been like, we're getting something nice. But
So
what, I'm not worth it on my own? What? Because oh no, I'm fine. I'm like, I can just suffer. I can just stay in a shithole. That's fine. Why are my standards like that for myself? Why am I allowing that and saying yes? Like, what? So it was like a lifting of standards for myself.
Yeah, I think that is so important.
Yeah. And then I was like, because I was really like looking at wealth stuff, I was like, oh, I'm using something that sounds logical here. Like I'm trying to back it up with something logical. I get really honest with myself, what's really going on here. And that's where it was like that radical accountability.
Yeah. And you get there like obviously through self-awareness, but tapping helps you kind of get to those layers as well.
Yeah.
And so good. Yeah. It's the best toolkit to have, honestly. It's so good. So, Teddi, I want to close with, I'm kind of changing up my closing questions, but I thought of this one for you today because you've had such a diverse life and you've achieved so many things. But what is the thing you're most proud of?
Trash, for sure.
Yeah.
100%. Like taking on my own business was phenomenal and is phenomenal. Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. Like it's helped me to like grow so much with my wealth stuff, with my organization, to creative expression. Like I really, really love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a cool space. If you haven't been yet, Trash Vintage in Byron, it's amazing. The fit out is incredible as well. It's such a vibe. It's you in physical shop form. It's so good.
So fun. I love it. Thank you.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the potty. I have loved like chatting with you, all the things. I have the biggest smile on my face right now. So thank you. And yeah, everyone who's listening, thanks for tuning in. I will see you on next episode.
Bye.